So, my best friend and I have known each other forever, and I love her with all my heart. We're extremely open and honest with each other, about as close as two people can be without being romantically involved, though it's a running joke that we're wives. Because of this, and because of her meticulous nature, we've previously run over random scenarios and what we'd like the other person to do in said scenario. Things like if a guy asked one of us out viaduct the other one, if we both got feelings for the same person, even things like if the other one died. One of these was the dreaded if I had a boyfriend and he had feelings for you scenario. The potential for this to happen has come up a few times in conversation over the years in varying degrees of seriousness, and while we agreed that it'd be awful and sucky, we didn't agree on what we would want to know in the situation. I would always, under any circumstances, want to know, and she wouldn't. She has been adamant about this every time it comes up, and no matter what question I hit her with or alteration to the scenario, she always made it 100% clear that she would never want to know. About 3 years back, she starts dating Guy. He's been around, he's kind of one of those extended members of our group, so we both know him and I never thought much about him other than that he seems cool, nice, etc. Because of his proximity to her, he joins the rest of our friends group and he hits it off with all of us. The boys love him, the gals are happy for best friend because he's genuinely perfect for her. And most importantly, she is over the moon. All she's ever wanted is to be in love, it's a dream of hers. He treats her, and other people in general, with the utmost respect. Him and I get along well, we don't hang out the two of us, but we'll chat a bit, very basic stuff about music, our jobs, etc., and hang out the three of us. He had this small talk with some of our other friends too, and I always thought it was great because he was taking an interest in her life and the people around her. I've always been a bit of the odd one out in my group of friends. I was put up a few years in school, and because of that all my friends are just a little older than me and I've been the baby of the friends group my whole life. Most of us went from high school to the same university. I've also always had a general disinterest in dating. I've had interest from guys, but I'm a bit of a daydreamer, obsessed with my chosen field, and my future plans do not involve children and perhaps not even marriage. The idea of love always appealed to me, but I've just always been happy within myself and never in any kind of rush. Because of this, there was a running joke in our friends group about me dying alone surrounded by nothing but dogs, etc. harmless fun, and Guy joins in on these jokes as well over time. I noticed as he became closer to the group, he always seemed very interested in my love life, and encouraged me to pursue my dreams and take my time. Best friend always did the same. I never thought much of it. Until, about 4 months ago, I met a guy, 25M, who completely sweeps me off my feet. We'll call him Max, because that's his name. Totally unexpected, just swooped in and we've had a very charming, fairy tale-like romance. Because of my inexperience in relationships, I've spent a lot of time talking to best friend about all the feelings I've been having, etc. She's happy for me, gives me advice, yada yada. Guy is in the same room when this is happening a lot of the time, so sometimes gives his input. Everything is perfect and awesome. But then Guy starts acting weird. We'd be having drinks as a group and I'd be telling a story involving Max and he'd suddenly get really weird. He'd be warning me, telling me completely normal stuff Max does is red flaggish. Max spontaneously showed up to take me out on a date stargazing late at night. I love surprises, and I study/work in astronomy, and Guy is going on about how dangerous it was for me to go alone, blah blah. Guy has always been friendly, supportive, nice to and about everyone. So much so that best friend starts to doubt Max and his intentions purely because Guy is a great judge of character, while all my other friends think Max sound great and laugh Guy off as bizarre. During this time, Guy reveals to me he's going to ask best friend to marry him. Hooray. Totally awesome. Have to keep it a secret for now, but I'm really pumped for them. He told me so he could get advice on the ring, and how she'd like to be proposed to. All good. It finally reached the tipping point when Max met my friends, and they all really liked him. Everyone seems to be getting along and Max and Guy are chatting to his side. Suddenly, Guy just puts his glass down hard on the table and storms out of the bar. Best friend is all what? And goes after him, and I go over to Max to see what's up. Max looks super shocked. He tells me Guy was doing a bit of the Big Brother routine which he did get from a few of the guys in the group. Max said from most of the others it was playful banter type stuff, but Guy was a lot more serious. The point where he got up and stormed out was because Max had been talking about how serious he was about me. No one had to worry, he would never dream of hurting me, etc. Later on, Max suggested maybe Guy was jealous or something, but I was pretty disbelieving of that. I cannot stress enough that Guy has never done, or said, anything that ever seemed like he had feelings for me. He's treated me the same as anyone else in our friends group, the only difference being he's gotten to know me more because I spend a lot of time at best friend and his place. Deciding I had enough, I messaged Guy. First, I asked him if he was okay, then I went on to say that I hoped everything was cool between us all. The following conversation reads, him, it's not cool, I don't trust that guy. Me, do you mind if I ask why not in specifics? No one else got bad vibes. _and_ even invited him to the beach tomorrow. Him, he looks at you funny, I can't explain it properly. You've known me a while, you know I have your best interests at heart, trust me on this. Me, I understand that you can't help it if you get bad vibes, but no one else does. I'm sorry but I'd need more than trust me to go on. Regardless, while I appreciate your concern, I'm capable of making my own mistakes, and I do not think this is one. It'd really mean a lot to me if you could try and get along with him to make it easier to fit in. I plan on keeping him around for a while, and best friend wants to do double dates and stuff, so you're going to run into him eventually. Him. 1. Double dates sounds lame. 2. Even if it didn't, I don't want him to come. Me. 1. Take that up with your lady. 2. Do you really not like him that much? Him. Okay, he seems alright but kind of weird. How can a theater kid be so alpha? It's more that I'm jealous. Me. I resent the notion that theater guys can't be manly, but also, the group is really tight, but everyone really likes you, you've been one of us for years now. Max got a lot of attention tonight, BC, he's the new guy. I'm sorry if you felt excluded, but I promise it's really not like that. Him. Not of that. I've been thinking very carefully about how to phrase this message. I don't want you to think I don't love best friend, because I do. Very much. But I am also in love with you, and have been for about 2 years. When I realized I thought about breaking up with best friend, but you were always so in your own world, I thought I'd never have a shot anyway, especially if I was your BFF's ex. I pushed it down. Lived with it. It was hard, it sucked. I got over it, kind of. I thought that if I couldn't be with you, then at least I could have happiness with best friend and be near you. Then, you met Max, and watching you start to fall in love with him is the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. I know this is cliche and dramatic, I know it's fucked and I should just not say any of it, but I literally feel sick when you talk about him. I cannot tell you how much I wanted to hit the guy last night, and then how bad I felt about it when I realized he was actually a decent guy. I think the only thing worse than you being with another guy is you being with another guy I actually like. Sorry for offloading onto you, I know it's unfair to do this now. I do love best friend. You know I do. I want to marry her. I would rather you didn't tell her, but what happens next is up to you, I guess. Me. If this is a joke, it's not funny, can you please tell me the truth? Him. Sorry, but that is the truth. What are you going to do? I haven't sent him anything back after that. He sent a few more messages asking what I was going to do. I replied to say I was thinking. Small edit. Since posting this, he sent quite a few more messages asking what I was going to do. I told him I still hadn't decided overall, but also made it clear I don't reciprocate his feelings. I am gutted, and how I feel is nothing compared to how best friend would feel if she knew. I want to tell her so badly. I know if I was in her shoes, I would want to know. The last thing I'd want to do is marry a guy who wasn't honest with me about something like that, but it was the beginning of this year that we last joked about this exact scenario and she was still adamant she wouldn't want to know. I know it's not my fault, but I still feel terrible. I'm questioning if I ever did anything to bring this on from Guy, and if I can even go on acting like he never said anything. His feels are not reciprocated at all, never have been. Max was with me when I got the message and has been very supportive, if a little miffed towards Guy for obvious reasons. Send help. Best friend meets Gaia 3 years ago. He integrates into our friends group, gets along with everyone, is just generally a cool guy. Life goes on, they move in together. I'm thrilled for her, he's all she's ever wanted. I meet what seems like my dream guy. Everyone is happy for me, except Guy, who seems super standoffish and weird about it. I don't think much of it. Guy wants to marry best friend and tells me about it to get advice. Awesome. Eventually it snowballs after Max and Guy meet for the first time to Guy telling me over messages that he's in love with me, but still wants to marry best friend and just be in love with me from the shadows. His feelings for me are not reciprocated in the slightest. I need to talk about this. Reddit. Should I tell her? Should I just keep it to myself? I'm furious with Guy. I feel terrible. I feel awful for best friend. I don't know if I can look her in the eye as she marries this person. I don't know if I can let her marry someone him without her knowing all the facts. I'm overwhelmed. Please, just give me some advice. Update 1. Sorry, this'll probably get long. It does. So, there were lots of conflicting opinions on what to do, and a lot of you had really good reasons behind those. However, there were consensus which seemed to be that 1. This sucks and there's no ideal solution, and 2. Everyone seemed on board with the letter idea which was suggested by a few people. The gist of it was that I should write a letter and put the screen caps, etc. I took into it, and then offer the information to her again. That way, she would have some more agency to choose whether or not she wanted to know. I have to say, letting her know there was something to know kind of felt like I was forcing her to choose to open it, but, well, here's what happened. I made the envelope and went to her place while Guy was working just to hang out. Pretty usual stuff. Reddit. I'm not a terrible actress, but this woman knows me so well. She opened the door to let me in and immediately asked what was wrong, and to my everlasting shame I immediately burst into tears. Super pathetic of me, and not ideal. After I'd composed myself, I started saying what I'd been practicing in my head. Pretty much, that there was something we'd talked about a lot in our scenarios that had happened, and she had always said she wouldn't want to know, but I wanted to give her the option. I gave her the letter. Then without even opening it, she also started to cry, which made me start up again, which was kind of okay because the ridiculousness of us both just standing in her living room sobbing all over each other made us laugh a little bit. A lot of people had guessed she had noticed or had some kind of idea of Guy's feelings, and they were absolutely right. But it's weirder than even that. I genuinely can't believe I'm explaining this, it's just weird. I don't know. Best friend had thought Guy had a harmless little crush on me. The kind people in relationships just get sometimes. But when he didn't talk to her about it, she started to feel uncomfortable, and she did something she shouldn't have. But you know how it goes. She snooped. She snooped on his laptop months ago, and found a file with my initials on it buried amongst a bunch of other stuff. She went and got his laptop and gave it to me to read while she read my letter. Inside it were stories he had written, like fanfiction, about the three of us living like a kind of poly-relationship lifestyle where we were his wives. Some of it was sexual stuff which, I think I could understand it better if it had just been sexual fantasies, but there were also really long documents about our lives together. And it goes deep too. There was a whole plot line about him trying to convince me to have kids, love them, but I'm child-free and everyone around me knows it. There were loads of stories, all different lengths. I didn't read all of it, just kind of like skim read them with my mouth hanging open. It's so hard to explain. It was really bizarre to read about myself like that. There were newer documents best friend hadn't read, too. Best friend goes on to tell me that she hadn't minded because she was in all the stories as well, so she's reassured in his love for her, but obviously me being part of their life in that way isn't her ideal, and she was disturbed by the way he'd spoken to me in the messages from the other day, and the ones he sent since. I asked her loads of questions, including if she felt safe, and she said she does. I asked her what she wanted to do, and she said she wanted to leave him. She also apologized for not telling me, and while it doesn't sit well with me that she didn't, because of what happened after this, I've basically forgiven her / put any talk of that on hold. She doesn't need that now, and I've been so relieved she wasn't mad at me for bursting her bubble, and concerned for her, that it seems very secondary. Of all the things I expected to happen during my visit, it was none of that. So then the conversation switched to me being worried about her safety because while he doesn't seem dangerous, this is very obsessive, and he's clearly been upset by his fantasy becoming further from reality with Max in the picture, and now this. I'm a little anxious about Max's safety, too. I can't tell if I'm being reasonable or paranoid. She assured me tenfold that she feels completely safe, he's never done anything other than this that's red flaggish, but that she still wants to leave, and she's very cautious by nature, so she's taking some precautions. She got up and went to pack her bags, and started giving me typical her, business-like instructions on the things she wanted me to grab from around the house. She filled up her suitcases, and I filled up a box of her personal stuff. Then, she wrote a note for Guy explaining that she didn't think they should be together anymore, and she would only talk with him about it over messages or in person a few days from now, in a public place, she assured me. So, this is when I did something I maybe shouldn't have, I don't know. I carry a pen drive on my keychain. I told her that I wanted to take copies of the stories because if anything happens, even if she doesn't think it will, it's important that there's something we can use to prove his obsessive behavior. She said fine, so I now have a pen drive full of fanfiction and playlists about myself, my best friend and her ex. I'm not going to lie and say I'm not tempted to read them. Sheer morbid curiosity. But I've resisted so far. We went to my place first while we thought of what to do next, and her emotions were understandably all over the place. After I got a call from Max and filled him in, he said to come stay with him since Guy doesn't know where he lives. Best friend preferred to stay at a nearby hotel, which we used my car to pay for, and after I hovered over her anxiously as she settled in, she eventually said she wanted to be alone, which isn't unusual for her when she's upset. I've been to visit her and she's been sending me messages the whole time, so I'm feeling pretty confident about where her head's at. Sad, but coping well considering, but still just general worriedness. I'm staying with Max until things settle down. I've gotten, and am still getting, messages from Guy. I have been since about 5 p.m. that night, and it's been 2 nights since then. They're very I just want to talk messages. Not aggressive or anything like that. I was going to block him on everything, but best friend asked me not to because she's worried about his mental state. As a side note, I'm not bashing poly relationships by any means in this post. That is most definitely not the thing about this I find weird and bizarre. You do you. I'm staying at Max's just in case. Guy is trying to talk to me and to her, but the only responses he's gotten are to read the note she left him again. Now on to second story. Confronted my mom for favoring my twin sister, but learned her dark past, finding healing in an unexpected heart-to-heart dinner. I, 17 male, have a twin sister, and if I'm being honest, our mom has always seemed more partial to her. She's always far quicker to give her hugs and compliments, and she seems a bit more emotionally distant to me. I've noticed it my whole life and I've tried not to let it bother me, but things finally came to a head recently. I don't really want to get into the inciting incident that started this. Long story short, we've been looking at colleges and I was upset because it seemed like she wanted my sister to stay local more than she wanted me to, and I told her she loved my sister more than me our whole lives and she didn't give a shit about me, and I'm still not sure why. Today she came in my room and asked if we could talk, and she said there's something she felt it was time to tell me. Then she opened up about her childhood, something she's never done, and explained that her father abused her sexually and she had brothers who abused her too, and it instilled a deep disdain towards men in her. She told me she's been meaning to go to therapy and get help, But she told me it breaks her heart that she ever made me feel like she loved me less than my sister, and she's been trying my whole life to get the fuck over it and grow up, and that it breaks her heart that I haven't had the mom I deserve. She started crying and I hugged her and told her I loved her and she was a great mom and I was lucky to have her. Afterwards I suggested we go out to dinner, just the two of us, and I could pay, and she said she'd take me up on that under the condition she'd pay. So we had a really nice dinner and we talked, and I felt I connected with her in a way I hadn't before. I can't really explain it, but I felt like I saw her and she saw me in a different, but good, way. Overall, gonna be honest, I feel terrible because I feel like I made her trauma all about me. She's a wonderful person and I don't know why I'd accuse her of not loving me like she loves my sister. Alls I know is that I'm gonna be better to her and understand she's doing her best, as we all are. That's all. Just figured I'd share somewhere. Edit. Okay, yes, my mom has been making mistakes with not getting treatment and how she's been more partial to my sister than me. However, that doesn't mean she's a horrible mother like a bunch of comments are insinuating. She's a human being in pain and she was able to admit when she did something wrong, and just so everyone knows, she did make some calls and has an intake therapy appointment on Wednesday. If I made my mother sound like she hated me or was blatantly awful to me, she doesn't and she isn't. I love her and she loves me and we're going to do better from now on. Update 1. I was going to post an update 2 weeks ago, but the Reddit app crashed and I lost the post as I was close to finished with it. And I rage quit and lost the drive to write another one. That being said, thank you to some of the people commenting asking for an update. You helped bring the drive back. For those of you who haven't read my original post, to make a long story short, my mother was sexually abused her whole childhood by almost every single one of the men in her life, including her father, older brothers, and some older students at school. These horrible experiences ended up instilling a deep disdain towards men inside of my mother, and my whole life I always felt she connected with my sister more than me and made more of an effort to connect with her than me, and I confronted her about it recently. Then for the first time, she told me what had happened in her childhood to make her more partial to women and agreed to get therapy to help her with her problems. So before I get into my update, a few things. First, people were asking about my father and well, I've never met him. My mother has never told us about him aside from the fact that he left her to mother us all by herself at the last second. Like really, all by herself. We don't have any family members we talk to. Additionally, people accused her of telling me the story to manipulate me and get herself a pass, and that's just not true. If you want to argue she wasn't taking care of herself in the way she should have, then sure, you're not wrong. However, she's not abusive or shitty like that. She's just a person in pain. Now on to the update. She goes to therapy on Monday afternoons and I've been going with her to her sessions and we get dinner afterwards. To be honest, the main reason I started going with her to make sure she goes, and that's been going well. She walked out of one session crying this month, but that's just how it goes sometimes. I've also been seeing eye to eye with my mom in a way I never have, and I've even been getting along better with my sister, who she also ended up telling about her childhood, and my sister has been insanely compassionate towards both me and our mom, and sometimes will intentionally leave my mother and I alone so we can bond. And don't make any mistake, she is trying her damnedest to connect with me. She's been asking me questions about my hobbies and engaging in them with me, and I do believe she's a great mom. I'll close this out with an uplifting story from a few nights ago. So my sister and I watched some TV together and were up late, so we started heading to bed but heard our mom in her bed crying. We looked at each other and neither of us knew why she was crying, but I know she's been in pain, so I went inside and without saying anything lied down her bed next to her. She stopped crying and seemed surprised, but then my sister came into the room and also without saying a word got into the bed next to us. My mom started crying again, a good cry this time, and gave us both a hug and said I love you guys, and the three of us all went to sleep together. It genuinely made me feel like my sister and I were little kids again. Obviously we had a lot less space than we did back then and were packed tightly together, haha, but it was wonderful and reminded me of the old days when we'd all fall asleep together. Anyway, yeah, that's the update. Thank you to the people who were commenting asking me to post the update, and to anyone who left a supportive comment on my last post. It means a lot. Smile. Oop. The cynical part of me wonders if she wasn't comfortable until my sister got in the bed. However, I'll still take it as a victory she trusted me enough to fall asleep with me in that situation. Hell yeah. Oop. I'm not smart enough for some of the big schools like my sister is. One of the reasons I thought my mom loved her more than me. And TBH, I've come to realize that goddamn, community college is seriously underutilized, so I'm probably gonna stay local. Also, a lot of the stuff I love relating to my hobbies is here, so that makes it a pretty appealing option. I'm not smart enough for the big schools like my sister is. Oop. One of the managers at my job told me if he could do it all over again, he'd go to community college then transfer. It's so much cheaper to update too. So I figured I'd post another update. I've made posts about my mother who explained to me how she was sexually abused by all the men in her childhood, which is why she has always seemed partial to my twin sister, and you can just go to my post history to see the full story because I don't particularly care to summarize it again. This one is not as happy. Ever since I first confronted her about it, I've had this sense of resentment towards her I'd been trying to compartmentalize and deal with later, or at least in my own therapy sessions. As of late it's been getting harder to ignore them, And over the weekend I lost my temper and yelled at her asking why she thought it was okay to wait so long to get help and how she probably wouldn't have done anything if I didn't call her out for her bullshit. She heard me out and started to cry and said the only thing she can say is I'm right and I've always deserved a mom who would outwardly love me as much as my sister, and it breaks her heart I didn't get that mother, and all she can say is she's sorry and hopes I can forgive her someday. I didn't say anything in return and just left the house. I haven't confronted her since, and I know she feels bad, and the shitty part of me feels good about that, but I know she needs all the support she can get, so it's just a shitty situation all around. This is probably above Reddit's pay grade, but I figured I'd post it anyway. Oop, yeah, I'm seeing a therapist. Update 3. I was thinking today and randomly remembered a year ago, 18 meters, posted about me telling my mom that she's obviously always loved my twin sister more than me, and then he explaining how she grew up in a house with a father and brothers who regularly sexually assaulted and raped her, and she projected that disdain towards men onto me. Since then, my mother, my sister, and I have been seeing our own individual therapists, and we've had several group sessions together. So today, my sister is away at college, and I stayed local and go to community college. Something, I think, I mentioned in my old post was my mom was pushing me to go away to school and encouraging my sister to stay local. Funny how that happens. Anyway, my sister is coming back home this week for the holidays, but I've honestly really enjoyed it here with my mom. She's been making an effort lately to engage with me with the things like passionate about, and I'm a big movie fan, so I've been showing her my favorite movies over the past few months. She's made an insane amount of progress as well, and I'm so proud of her, and we have a wonderful relationship. It certainly wasn't always pretty over the past year, and even though the work isn't always easy, the payoff is certainly worth it. So yeah. We're doing a lot better than we were when I made that original post last year.